Thank you for joining us on another episode of Beyond the Listing. I'm your host, Jeremy Madore, where we talk about the business of real estate outside of the listing environment. And today I am sitting with
Chris Ridick from Compass Real Estate in Concord, part of the Ridick Revis Group. And we opened the Compass office in Concord 5 years ago. And we've grown it to be a very competitive option for sellers and buyers in Concord.
Wonderful. The Concord office, is it its own standalone office, or is it part of the Boston branch?
It's actually its own standalone office. It was originally out of the Newbury Street office in Boston, where we've got 500 or 600 agents now. And the Concord office was started by me and my team. So it was 5 people 5 years ago, and we're up to 30 now. All right. So we've grown really quickly.
All right. Some people would say that you're the OG for Compass Concord.
I'll take it. I'll take that.
Well, I'm glad to have you here in the studio, and I'm looking forward to our conversation, Chris.
Likewise. Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah, so we met 8 to 10 years ago.
Yeah,
in that ballpark.
But at that point, you didn't. I mean, was it just you at that point?
Me. So Keith's been working with us for 7 years this year. So yeah, I'd say it was either just me or barely with Keith. So yeah. So our highest market year from a volume. So obviously we have to look at volume versus sales, whatever, right? But strictly from a volume basis, our highest year was 21.
Yeah, right, that makes perfect sense. And for us as agents, that was probably our best year too. I don't remember exactly.
Just from a sheer volume standpoint.
Yeah.
And since then, it's actually
COVID
been
bounce. Yeah.
Right. So it's been declining year over year since.
Okay.
However, this year it looks like we're on par to meet or beat last year.
Okay.
From a volume basis.
Oh, good.
For what it's worth. And when I speak with agents, and of course this is anecdotal.
Yeah. When
I speak with agents, by and large, they're like, no, less numbers for me this year than last.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely. I was talking to our manager this morning, and that's everybody's off, the market's off, so individual agents are going to be.
Getting back to your question, if it's market share versus just volume, it's clearly market share at that point, because if our volume is up and everyone else's volume is down, and the market's down, then it's a dead ringer, right?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
But interestingly, that's actually not the metric that we really care a whole heck of a lot about.
Okay.
Volume is less important to us than the quality of each of the interactions. Specifically, how are agents marketing their properties? How are they marketing their businesses?
Yep.
What kind of products or technologies are they interested in, both currently and future?
Sure.
There's obviously questions of what emerging technologies are going to be out there. Obviously we have everything from stuff that's past due its shelf life for years past. Like the whole virtual tour has really revamped itself a number of times in the past 10 years.
For sure.
But some people are still operating off of the old 1 point of reference per room. So like you click on the virtual tour, you go into the center of a room, you spin and you go to the next one.
Right.
Whereas with the Madore, for example, and even that's not a current technology really, you can migrate through the home incrementally. Yep. That's great. Yep. Let's take it a step further, guys. Come on, but we're waiting on
iteration of the next wave. Yeah.
Exactly.
2.0, 3.0, 4.0.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so it's interesting to see how the market has shifted since I entered it. Again, anecdotally, when I first started, I was out in Andover. I was living in Andover at the time.
Sure.
And I had taken kind of I had given myself a little bit of a review based off of how many, according to my own perception, how many homes were professionally photographed on MLS at the time. And this was 11 years ago, right? So it'll be 12 years in November. Yeah. And so at the time, it was like, at most 25%.
Is that right? I'm just trying to think that, because I've been doing it for almost 25 years.
Yeah.
And not just I remember, but I also go back and look at old listings frequently just for data and so forth. And you go back 20, 25 years and there were no photos generally on MLS.
Yep.
And then it kind of snuck into the one photo for a little bit. and it was, I remember talking in the office like, have you bought a camera yet? You got to buy a camera because we're putting photos on there now.
Yep.
And so for the next 5 or 10 years, it was agents taking photos.
Yeah. Point and shoots and stuff.
Yeah. And you look at those photos now and it's like, oh my God,
night and day difference,
we should
right?
be sued by our clients for misrepresentation.
At the time, it was the best technology available for the agent, right?
And at least there was a picture because people weren't even used to pictures.
For sure. At least it was in the catalog that you guys had.
Exactly.
So for me at the time, about 20 to 25% of the homes that when I looked initially, appeared to be of the professional ilk, right? It wasn't, maybe it wasn't like polished professional, but you could tell that somebody took a painstaking amount of time to go achieve the photos versus just click, see you later.
Yeah, using your iPhone, the agent with the iPhone.
Right. So at the time when I entered the market, there was maybe only 2 or 3 actual photography companies that were doing what we were doing.
Yep.
And then we entered the market. I moved out to Central Massachusetts right around the time that you and I met. Yep. This was like 8-9 years ago. Yep. And out here, there was only one photographer, and he was doing a kind of job. Sure. And whatever, there's room for everybody in the business. Yep. And my phone lit up. Yep. And from there, I was able to secure Keith as an employee. And it's just shot the moon.
Yeah. So. No, it makes perfect sense. And I mean, it's somewhat driven by the agents, but it's really driven by the sellers and what their expectations are. And I mean, one of the things about the real estate business that I find interesting and I kind of like about it is it's so competitive and there's so many agents out there that if there's a new technology, if there's something new that you can offer to your client, the good agents are going to find it and they're going to start using it to get a competitive advantage because there's not much that differentiates agents one to the next. No. I mean, I think there is because I know them all, so I know who's great and who isn't.
Well, but you're talking about intangibles, right? They eventually become tangible because it works itself out in the soup, so to speak. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But on paper, there's not a lot.
Well, when someone says, how are you going to market our house? Like the most common question, like, what do you do differently? Yeah. You get that a lot because, they also, everyone knows, you're just going to post it in MLS and it's going to feed to those websites, and you're going to hold an open house. I can get anybody to do that. Why are you different? Yeah. And, there's plenty of answers for that. But at a minimum, I've always felt like we have to offer the latest technology and all of it. Like,
access to the whole suite.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the cost is, especially for our market, the cost of it is so relatively low that I don't want to lose a listing because I wanted to save $200 because I didn't want to do floor plans or a Matterport or a video. Yep. So it's just like, do it all. Yep. And that not only is to please that one client, but it's to use to market yourself for the next client.
It future proofs.
You got to do it. Yep. I mean, I don't know how people don't do those things. It's amazing to me that some people still don't. But
yeah, so obviously you indicated your market, right? And so I'm sure that a large part of it is the price point of the homes that you are transacting, right? When I say a large part, I'm talking about the fact that it's a non-issue. Right. Ultimately. Right. Yep. Now all of a sudden when you go from the $1 million plus down to the 500 plus, now the dynamic changes a little bit, right? Right. So we have a number of clients who use kind of a good, better, best scenario. Yeah. Where if your price point is this, my commission I'm just arbitrary figures. Sure. My commission is 3%. And for 3%, I will do this best package. Yep. At 2.75, I will do this package, and 2.5, I will do this package. Right. You tell me what you want to do. Yeah. That kind of thing. Yep. And so that has worked out quite well for a number of agents that have taken that approach.
That makes sense.
Because at that point, if you're doing 500,000, let's say you do a 3% transaction fee, that's 15,000. Yep. But after you pay your broker and all your other fees, maybe you're left with what, 8, 9 or whatever. Yeah. And now $1,000 out of that means something.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. So. No, it definitely does. But I think there's also that. Well, I've started doing professional photographs and using you guys for rentals. Yeah. In part because I don't want my name tied to my pictures from my iPhone. I don't want to say, because I know, I just always look at it, and there's a little bit of paranoia in me, although I always fall back on the saying that, he without paranoia is he without full knowledge of the facts. And it's only paranoid if they're not out to get you. But in business, I think you have to have that. approach. And so I just assume other agents are seeing what I'm doing and using it against me if I do something wrong, like I take a listing with bad photographs.
That's fair.
That's
fair.
Whether or not it actually happens, I just don't want to potentially give anyone ammunition against me if I'm competing for something.
I'll give you the flip side of that one, because I have, in fact, learned this knowledge through applied use.
Sure.
We have agents who have gained business because they hire a professional on all their listings, and didn't have a hole in their portfolio.
Yeah.
So the portfolio hole is what you're talking about. Yeah. You don't want to have that happen where you go low budget for that one listing, but guess what? Now that listing is searchable, your name's attached to it. It lives on in perpetuity, and now all of a sudden you got that little bit of a sidestep.
And your phone may never ring because seller X sees that listing and goes, oh, I don't like the way he did that. I'm not going to call him. So it's just, I mean, there is a reputation and maintaining a reputation for quality and things like that. And at that point, in our market at least, it's barely a differentiator. The bad news for me is that everybody now knows who you are and can get the same things in terms of the marketing piece, the photography, the video, and so forth that I use. And so, I mean, I have to look just in general, and I've been doing this for years, look at how else I can differentiate myself from other agents. And for us, it's like offering staging for free, having our own staging furniture, like doing those sorts of things. That's something that most agents can't do or don't do. Because there's a substantial investment. There's an ongoing expense to it as well, moving it and so forth and doing all those things.
Do you guys own and store it as well?
We do. It's not cheap, but I mean, it's also, if you spend $10,000 or $20,000 on furniture, it's not going to pay back in the first listing you use it at, but on the 15th or 20th, and, I always look at it from the standpoint of, is it going to be helpful to my seller? Are they going to get a higher price? Is it something that they're going to tell people about after the transaction?
Is it real value?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the one thing that we've been doing now for years, or offering at least for years, and we've gotten better at and gotten new inventory of furniture and things like that, that we continue to do. And now, of course, our competition does some of it too, but they don't necessarily do it to the extent that we do. Right.
And that's what it comes down to, right? So your differentiator is the fact that while you might have similar services to what your competition does, you have the resources to do it bigger, better, more, and you have the power behind it, which is a very key thing. It's just like us, there are videographers out there who are solopreneurs. They're just by themselves and they do their thing.
I got the emails.
They do beautiful work, but they can't handle the volume. Right. Or they don't have a scalability model so that when things get busy, nothing falls off the truck. Right. That's why we have an administrative staff of 6 people in the back end, so that we can keep the truck rolling. And that there's a lot of value tied up in that's not obvious when you're just working with one photographer on site. But you have this whole workforce right behind you to make sure that you get what you need.
Infrastructure there. And for me, it's the one-stop shop. Right. It's there are other photographers around. There are other people that do floor plans. There are other people that do videos. And other people that do the virtual staging and things like that. And it's like, okay, great, but I don't want to talk to 6 different people. I don't have time to do that and try to coordinate it. So that's huge value add for us that, I can just hassle Danielle whenever I need anything.
And she loves it. She loves it.
She's got a great attitude.
Good-natured clients always have an open door policy with Madore Photography.
Perfect. We try to be good-natured.
It's not about the problem. It's about how people interact when there's a problem, right?
Absolutely, because there's always going to be something. And I do not envy you guys because I'm sure, and because I know it from my side, there are certain homes that don't photograph well.
No.
Because they don't look good in person. So how much doctoring do you want to do to the photograph? You can virtually stage and you can do everything else. But, but I'm sure you get the phone call sometimes like, I don't like the pictures. It's like, well, that's because the house doesn't look nice. I'm sure you get some of that, or the seller sees it for the first time from someone else's eyes.
Yes.
And
yes, most certainly that.
Yeah, and you're not capturing. You didn't.
No.
You know, my house is special.
Yep.
And you're not capturing how it's special.
We get that. I'd say by and large, that's probably of the feedback that we get that is negative or challenging feedback, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the lion's share of it right there.
Of
is
course.
the client saw the photos and blah, 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 blah.
Right. Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
You know what?
It's the nature of the beast.
Your client is my client.
Right.
By extension.
We need that person to be happy.
I think my favorite.
If the client's happy, we're happy, and you're happy.
Exactly. It's all transitive property.
That's right.
I think my favorite customer complaint to date was there was a very prominent arborvitaes that had overgrown in the corner. So it was a kind of a corner house, right? So it's got the front, and then this garage comes out the side.
Yep.
But the arborvitaes, or maybe it was a small pine, I don't know. Yep. All I know is I got like gargantuan,
huge,
right?
Yeah.
And so my feedback that I got from the client was the client thought that you made the tree look bigger than it was, and I'm like. And so I'm thinking to myself, I have a chainsaw that can help, but I don't think that's going to solve anything for anybody.
No, we can do a drone picture of maybe that would work around it.
Yep.
But
It's just one of those things. So you come across everything.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You indicated that you've been in the business how long? 25?
About 25 years now. Yeah.
So you've seen market cycles come and go.
Sure have. Yeah. I mean, this is where. We're long in the tooth for the bull market that is real estate. I mean, we're about 14, 15 years into the growth since 2009, 10 when we had the last downturn.
Yep.
So, we've been booming for a while, and then COVID just took it to a whole other level.
It did.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's been great to be in the business during that time.
Sure.
For sure. But I do remember when I was earlier on in the business, which from like 2000, 2010, I did a fair amount of development. I did some new construction. I did a lot of renovations, properties that I purchased and sold after we did the work or built. And so I went through that cycle and then that downturn. And that downturn was one of the reasons why I got out of that business, because I was spending significant amounts of money and a tremendous amount of time and energy on projects that just weren't profitable at the end of the day because the market wasn't going up, it was going down.
Yep.
So, that background and that experience helped me on the sales end of it because it was experience that most agents didn't have.
Okay.
So I was a little more knowledgeable about construction and renovations and things like that when I was showing houses and giving people advice.
Sure. That's good. Yeah. What's your background prior to that?
Yeah, so like most agents, I come from a bit of an eclectic background.
Were you a teacher?
No, I wasn't a teacher.
Right.
No. So I grew up in Concord, went to public schools there. My mother was a broker. So I grew up in that environment, and my parents always invested in real estate. So they always had rental properties around, things like that. So that was always kind of part of my growing up. And I went to Bentley undergrad, went to Babson for my MBA. And I bought my first multifamily in Brookline when I was 24 and fixed it up myself with my brother. And
do you still have it?
I wish we had it. No, I think I paid $245 and I sold it for $400 and thought I was a hero. Yeah. And now
it's probably worth $1 million.
I think the two condos are each worth $1 million at this point, but it's like you can't keep them all.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Buy and hold.
Yeah, that's the key for sure. Exactly. Have a long time horizon. So I was doing that. I actually, my first job was at Boston Scientific, a medical device company. Yeah. I was there for 7 years. Okay. I was in corporate operations and then in new business development. They paid to put me through Babson at night for my MBA. Okay. And then for a couple of years, I caught the very tail end of the first internet boom in 99, 2000. Sure. Did a couple of internet companies, one in Cambridge and then one out in Silicon Valley. And then the bubble deflated.
You created them?
I went to work for one in Cambridge and helped take them public after like a year and a half. And then I went with those founders and became a co-founder of a company in Silicon Valley. It was out of the incubator space at Yahoo, actually, where we had that. But that was 2000, 2001 when the bubble started to deflate. Sure. Our funding dried up. We had gone from
6 people to 60 in about 5 months, and then went from 60 to about 15 in like another 3 months.
Wow.
So it was
I can't imagine.
a roller coaster
Wow,
that's
an accordion. Wow.
It really was. And it was exciting. And, I loved the entrepreneurial part of that. And it was really, it was a great learning experience for me. But one of the things it taught me, frankly, was that I wanted to be my own boss and do my own thing, and didn't want to be subject to, all these different outside forces, if you will. So that led me to do real estate full time. And in the meantime, I had bought and sold some other properties. I owned a development project going on in Weston while I was out in California. So I just came back and worked on that full time. I got my license because all my friends were asking me, when they were buying their first house, I was, getting a lot of questions for advice and so forth. So I'm like, I might as well get my license. And then for the next 10 years, I did the development stuff and had my license.
All right. And then after that, it's just been the license?
Yeah. So since like 2010, I mean, that's all I focused on is selling.
Okay.
And that's, worked out well.
Tell me a little bit about your team.
Yeah, so we are 6 people now. Sue Revis and I teamed up about a year and a half, 2 years ago now.
I think the two of you guys have personalities that get along exceptionally well. From the outside, I can't speak to the inner workings.
Jeremy, I can honestly say it's really annoying, and we joke about this. We haven't disagreed on one thing in 2 years. No, like everything we say, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I would do too. Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It's just all agreement.
Yeah.
It's really strange.
Yeah.
But it's part of the reason why we had decided to team up.
Sure.
To begin with, is because we knew how each other ran the other one's business.
That's fair.
And we admired each other, and it was like, okay, this is a perfect fit, and it's worked out great.
How are you continuing to challenge each other is the question.
I would say our clients challenge us enough. I don't know if we need to challenge each other.
I was going to say, if you ever need a good argument, just give me a call.
Right, exactly.
I can pick a bone or two.
Last thing I need. So, I mean, but I think at least maintaining our market share and growing it if we can is probably just the challenge that we both look at. But we also have other great people in the team. The team's evolved like all real estate teams do over the years, and now we've just got all experienced agents from Annie Lou, who's been with me for almost 10 years, who does a great amount of business and is a fantastic agent, to Deb Smith and Doug Carson, both of whom joined us in the last year and change. Again, experienced, fantastic agents. Christy is my sister-in-law. She does a lot of our staging, but she's a great agent herself. So she's been doing more business. And so it's what I like to say, it's a group that I don't have to worry about because they all do the right things in their business. So I never get a phone call from a client saying, oh, so-and-so did something wrong.
So they take individual responsibility and champion what they're trying to accomplish.
Totally. And that's just kind of the way that we function as a group. And I like it because somebody has ownership of every aspect of a deal. There's no handing off of business. There's no saying, oh, it's nice to meet you. Here's the listing contract. You've signed it. Now here's so-and-so who's going to do all the work now. Okay. I'm out of it, which you'll see with some of the bigger teams, just because of the volume of business they do. Right. We do a nice volume. We're generally $80 to $100 million a year over the last 5 years on average. And that equates to, I don't know, 50, 60 transactions, something like that. And it's not necessarily split evenly between all the team members, but everyone has a volume of business that they can handle and be successful with.
So you're all running the football.
We are. I mean, we're always there for each other. If someone gets, has to go away for something or whatever, there's that coverage. There's always the sharing of ideas and advice. If you need a contractor to do something, or needs a specialist or something, we've got to use the old term, we all have Rolodexes that go back years, and we all have people that we can
What's
share.
a Rolodex?
Exactly.
I'm not that young.
It's like your list of contacts.
Exactly. Yeah. Is that why there's tabs on the side of my contacts list on my phone?
Exactly. There you go.
Why does the voicemail look like it's a mustache?
It all makes sense now.
All right, great. So tell me a little bit about your marketing techniques that, obviously don't give me like a peel behind the curtain, but give me like a broad overview. What's the goal? What's the procedure?
Sure. So, the goal is always to get the most money for our clients. It's always to sell a house for the highest price, but also the best terms. And, the terms can also include, whether someone's getting a mortgage, doing a home inspection, what their closing dates are, all the, where they have a home sale contingency and they offer all those sorts of things. So if you look at all the terms, but oftentimes it comes down to price. So, how do we do that? It certainly starts with you guys. We always say, photography, that's, most buyers are looking online. The first thing they see are the photos. Yeah. In our case, with your help, we've also got the videos. I like the full motion video a bit more than the Matterport tours, but we use them both. We use them both because if people want to see them, and some buyers love the Matterports and some don't.
Please confirm or deny this.
Yeah.
Out-of-state buyers or reloads really appreciate the Matterport.
Yes, and I also am going to be an ageist and say that I think younger people a lot of times prefer the Matterport versus older people like me.
Fair. Okay.
Because I think a lot of times if you're at all clumsy with the technology, doing a Matterport, you end up walking into walls and you're like, oh, so the whole experience feels clunky.
Okay.
It's user error, and I'll admit that. But
and you're willing to say it. That's good.
Exactly. But a full motion video, you can't screw it up. You start it, and it's like, wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, there's an entertainment quality to it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so with the Matterport, of course, there is that aspect where you get to self-pace. You get to really look in the nooks and crannies. And
right.
I find that the best part about the Matterport is that it doesn't hide anything.
Right.
And the worst part about
except for where the doors are closed that you can't go in.
Yeah. And then the worst part about it is it doesn't hide anything. Right. So it's a double-edged sword of sorts.
Yeah.
But I admire the fact that you guys are as diverse in your technological needs as you are. Or your adoption, I guess is the best way to say it, because there's a lot of customers that we have that avoid Matterport like the plague, and people who believe in Matterport and avoid video like the plague. So this, never the two shall meet sometimes.
Yeah, so. And I think what you can do again, if you're willing to make the investment, is you do both, and maybe you only post the full motion video, but you have the Matterport available if there is an out-of-state client that wants to use that, or just someone prefers that. Yeah. So you can share that with agents to share with their buyers.
For sure.
You can share it directly.
My favorite success story regarding Matterports is during COVID, one of our agents up in Winchendon in 20 minutes sold a property because they saw the Matterport, they took the tour, they're done.
That was it. They were ready.
It was an out-of-state purchase. Yeah. They were already relocating as it was. The Matterport tour sealed the deal because they were able to see what it was that they were looking for. Yep. It checked all the boxes. Get out of here.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense because a lot of times the alternative is someone trying to do like a on your phone a
walkthrough
virtual tour on the phone, and half the time we don't have coverage and it's dropping in
for sure,
and out,
especially
in
your neck of the woods.
And, Concord's brutal.
It really is.
For the signal. So
beautiful town, horrible signel.
I know. I don't know if those correlate in any way, but they've just been very reluctant to add some cell towers.
I think there's a Venn diagram there.
Yeah, there might be. So you asked about the marketing. So we do all those things. Compass is a great company to work for. They offer some things that other companies don't, like private exclusive and coming soon, and things that for some sellers work better than others, which, if you don't want to put your property on the market, say for a couple of months, but you're also afraid that you're going to miss a buyer. So maybe you don't want to put it on MLS, but you put it on coming soon, or, you aren't sure about your pricing, or you're only willing to sell if you get $3 million, and most people are telling you should list it for 2.5. You can put it in private exclusive at 3 million. There's no days on market accumulating in MLS. And you can test that pricing. We've got 500 agents just out of our Boston office alone, and thousands in the Massachusetts. So, and I believe we're the number one brokerage in Massachusetts now. So, all those agents see that listing. Those agents have buyers. They're going to send that listing to their buyers.
Sure.
And then if the buyers look at it and say, "Oh, I want to take a look at that," that can be a big advantage to a seller. Also, because those buyers often think, "Ooh, I'm getting in first. I'm the only one who knows about this." And frankly, they're often willing to pay a premium to know that they're getting the house versus it going on the market. And I use the example of a $2.5 or $3 million house. It could be a $800,000 house,
right.
That they want to test the market on. So
even things like land deals, or is it mostly?
It's mostly homes. I mean, you certainly could do it with land as well. Yeah. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, curious.
So there are different ways to do that. And then, we do the traditional marketing stuff too. We still do run ads, and for us, the local thing is Concord Bridge and Discover Concord are the two publications that tend to reach everybody in town. Mm-hmm. So we run ads in those, full page, really nice ads off in the back cover where you get the most exposure. We still do mailings. We still do postcards. We still do that. But then we also do social media and Instagram and Facebook ads and things like that. So we're kind of across the board. It's competition. You have to do it. It's like you got to offer everything. I can't look a seller in the face and say, "Oh no, we don't do that because we don't feel like we need to." It's
that's fair.
There's no wrong. To me, there's no wrong way, or there's no bad way to attract a great buyer,
sure.
Right? Wherever they find it, wherever they see it. Right. Most of them are on Zillow or some other real estate website, and they get the updates every time something comes on the market. But there are also people who didn't know they were in the market until they saw that house come on in front of them, and they go, "Ooh, that's the house I've always wanted."
That happened to us. We were living in Leominster at the time, and I actually went to photograph the home. Yeah. And it was a post and beam home in Lunenburg.
Nice.
And I came home. And the thing about it is that, so my mother-in-law was living with us, and in Leominster, we had a double lot. We were in the center of a double lot.
Yep.
And we had the option from the town where we could build to the left or to the right, no big deal, right?
Okay.
But I was looking at the cost of construction, and it's a Leominster home. It's not like it was already a Lunenburg home where it's like, right? Yeah. It's like Carlisle versus Acton, right? So we were just looking at the dollars and cents, and it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to be putting about 100,000 in to, increase 50% square footage for a home in Leominster. Yep. And so I was just shooting this house. I'm like, wow, this is really awesome. Post and beam home, quiet cul-de-sac, 13 homes on the dead end. Yeah. It was great. Yeah. Came home, I was editing the photos, and my wife's looking over my shoulder. She goes, "Oh, wow, what is that?" And so I'm like, "They're having an open house this weekend." And so we went to the open house. She fell in love with it. We weren't able to get our finances in order because we hadn't. This was like, I want to say it was like, well, no, that's the thing. So we hadn't filed our taxes yet. And being self-employed, that was the be all end all.
Of course.
And so we couldn't submit an offer, and it went under agreement with somebody else. And then the guy, I guess, lost his job or whatever and backed out. Came back on the market, and it was a done deal. But it was just one of those things where I don't think we would have moved had we not found that home.
Right. You weren't on Zillow searching for homes every night.
No. Yeah. I was in them. I had already seen enough real estate where I didn't want to see more. No offense,
Yeah, exactly. You wanted a break from it. But the old saying in our business is, with real estate and maybe with life in general, everything happens for a reason.
For sure.
And we certainly see that a lot where someone misses out on a home, and maybe the next week there's a home that's better for them, or it comes back to them, and it's, it happens time and time again.
I find that the most interesting ones are the homes that are back on market, whether it be inspection issues, financial issues, or whatever.
Sure.
It unfortunately softens up the seller a little bit.
Softens up the seller, and honestly, it limits the buyer pool because a lot of buyers see it come back in the market. And a lot of agents are guilty of this too, and they think, "Oh, something went wrong.
Yeah,
something's wrong with the house."
But that's not necessarily the case.
Definitely not.
In fact, I'd say lion's share of the time, it isn't.
That's right. That's right. Or hey, I've been in inspections where the buyer
has an inspector tell them, oh, there's mouse droppings in the corn. They go, there are mice here, and they're out. Like, they're done at that point. It's like, well, welcome to the country.
Yeah.
Like, everybody has mice occasionally. This shouldn't be a deal breaker for you.
No.
Or maybe you should stay,
maybe you should stay in the city.
Yeah, stay in the city. Although there are rats in the city.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's a lot less frequent where there's rats in your house. Than
Let's
mice.
hope.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
So anyway, but it can be for any reason. Cold feet. I had a buyer back out a few months ago who decided that the drive that they were going to have to make from the Concord house to where they had to go to Providence twice a week was actually going to take a few hours.
Sure.
And they didn't realize it was going to take that long. And they didn't realize it until after they had an accepted offer.
Oh,
and they were driving back from the house on I think it was a Friday night.
Sure.
The traffic was awful.
Yeah.
And they're like, I can't do that. I can't do the commute. And it's like, geez, wish you had figured that out before you put the offer in.
I can kind of sympathize with that a little bit.
No, I sympathize, but I felt worse for my sellers
For sure,
who accepted the offer.
for sure. Yeah, I get that. So. What does Chris's life look like other than outside of real estate?
Not much. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Someone get him a social life now.
Exactly. Now, I'm married to a great guy. We've got 2 golden retrievers, including a 10-month-old one that's about 80 pounds now, a giant beast, and a 3-year-old girl. We've got a house on the Cape. We live in Lincoln. Spend a lot of time trying to get down the Cape as much as possible.
Yep.
The good thing with Chatham is it's close enough that if I need to run back for a showing or to do have an appointment with a seller or something, I can do it. The bad news is it's close enough where I can come back. So most of the trips to Chatham end up being 48 hours or something like that. So it's hard to get down for a long period of time. But we rent it out most of the summer anyway.
Okay, good for you guys.
So, we do that. We're doing some traveling. We got a trip to Hawaii coming up next month. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, some friends of ours just got back from Hawaii. They just returned 2 days ago. They were gone for almost 10 days.
Yeah, it's nice you can go for a little bit.
He's former military, so he was Navy. And so they were going to the Pearl Harbor Memorial. I guess there was a dedication ceremony.
Nice.
And then they just kind of stayed around Honolulu and everything.
Yeah, that we had gone there for 3 years ago and stayed in Honolulu. This time we're going to go to Maui because we didn't see it the last time. So
awesome.
Should be fun. Yeah.
He told me that it took him almost an hour to travel 6 miles because of gridlock traffic.
Really?
In Honolulu.
I guess the traffic's everywhere now, huh?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Can't escape it.
No, I guess not.
So,
everybody's on vacation there, but apparently people must work.
We try not to.
Right. Not when you're there.
You can't avoid it. One way or another, you're going to be doing that.
It's true.
So, so from this year, obviously 24 was a different year than previous years from a volume and a feel standpoint. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Interest rates coming down.
Right.
They're inflating the buyer pool. No, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. They are fanning the flames of the seller pool, or at least that's what we're seeing from a late blooming second spring market, fall market kind of thing.
Yeah, more inventory and things.
Yeah. Inventory's on the upswing. What's your buyer pool looking like, and how's that scenario planning out?
I think in general, 2024 to me was almost a return to normalcy to some degree after COVID being so crazy. I think we started to see seasonality again. We saw things slow down in the summer. I expect we're going to see a slowdown over the holidays again.
Yep.
I think January is actually going to be a really strong month, and I think 2025 is going to be very strong because of a combination of the lower mortgage rates, a little more inventory to choose from. Concord's inventory, I think we've got 38 or 39 homes on the market, but there were only 20 a year ago. So in a normal balanced market, you'd still want to see twice as many. You want to see 80 or more. Before we started to have the inventory shortages, I want to say 2019, 2020, we had 220 to 240 sales a year, single families. This year we've got 160. Last year we had 160. And that's all because of the inventory constraints, not because there aren't enough buyers around.
Okay.
So we need the inventory to go up to basically help, fill that demand that the buyers are still, the buyers who are still out there looking. A lot of the inventory that we've seen come on has been north of 2.5 million. So it's not, there are fewer buyers when you get to the higher price point, of course. But we have very little, good inventory, say under 1.5.
And when we do get it, it goes right away, and it can go with multiple offers. And I think we're going to see, again, a lot more of that come January. I don't think the next few months are going to be booming by any means. I'm giving advice to my current sellers to wait until January to list for the most part, just because we're seeing some houses languish on the market, and we're seeing price reductions and things like that. So you don't necessarily want to jump into the pool when it's like that. Buyers in general, I mean, it just depends. I think the volume is certainly down from the spring, but that again is normal.
Yeah.
Fall market's always going to be less. People in our market move often for the school year.
Yeah.
So they're making their purchase in the spring.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair, especially in your area, in your region. School choice, or school selection is a major motivator.
For sure, absolutely. And if given the choice, no one wants to take their kids out in the middle of the year, school year, and then move to a different district. And most of them, one thing we do see is, a lot of people used to put a house under contract in May to get in for the school year. Now we see a lot of people putting a house under contract in February or March to get in June. So they have the whole summer to kind of, get adjusted to the town and maybe do summer camps or whatever, but just so it isn't that rush.
Acclimate to the community. Yeah,
exactly.
Fair enough.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
So it's interesting. The buyers are still out there, but it's just, to me, it's more a normal fall market of buyers and less of the rabid, spring buyers that we saw.
Certainly. With your history of getting involved in development and construction, do you ever check to see how many total homes are in existence within a community year over year? Because obviously, we're seeing an increase in total number of homes.
Sure.
And we're seeing a decrease. We're seeing a decrease in total available listings, right? So that delta is getting bigger and bigger over time.
Yep.
As we're building but not selling them.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, for reasons like the, that interest rate lockup with people that have the 3% mortgages aren't putting their houses on the market. Yeah.
I'd be curious to see what that data looks like adjusted for inflation, not necessarily financial inflation, but home inflation, as far as how many properties are in existence versus available, et cetera.
I think the hard part, to answer your question, I don't really track that, in part because in the communities I work in, that number of houses is not increasing by any significant number. And that's why we see tear downs. That's why most new construction is from a house that's been torn to the ground.
Okay, all right.
Unfortunately, we've lost some of our economic diversity because what is now used to be a $500,000 tear down is now an $800,000 tear down.
Yep.
And it used to be a 1.7 house they're building. Now it's a 2.7 house they're building. So, that's just the economics of it. There's a tremendous amount of money that's still coming into our towns, and a lot of it is coming from younger buyers who are buying these new construction homes. So we just don't see a significant change or increase in the number of housing units. Occasionally we'll have a small development go in, maybe on a piece of farmland, or maybe a few I'm trying to remember the last time we had a new condo development. We don't have them very much, and that's in part because the regulations in the town are so strict.
Yep. Which
is a double-edged sword as well.
Sure.
Keep the character of the town, but limit the number of housing units available.
Right.
I think that's why, and that's why prices get pushed up, of course.
Yeah.
Because of the lack of supply. So anyway, that's the way that I look at that in general.
Right.
But with rates going down, now you're starting to see 5.99 on a 30-year fixed. That still isn't great when you've got a 3% mortgage. And the last time I checked, I think it was something like 60% of homeowners who had a mortgage had a rate under 4%. So, I don't see us getting below 4% on mortgage rates anytime soon, if ever again.
Yeah.
So it takes a significant kind of life-changing event
For sure.
to make people move or make people go away from that interest rate. For me, the people I'm talking to, we're having another child, this house is getting too small.
Right.
And, we were looking at doing an addition, but we realized it's going to cost us more to do the addition, like you were just saying, versus buying another house.
Yeah.
So we see that, that driving people's decisions. And they'll unfortunately walk away from a really low mortgage rate, but they have to.
Yeah.
I mean, the other
you can't fight
available.
facts.
Right.
If your needs are your needs, then so be it.
And the other seller pool we see a lot of is people that are either going to assisted living or, they need to downsize.
Yep.
They've been in the house for 30 years and stuff like that.
Yeah. What do you see predominantly happening with those homes? Are those becoming the teardowns? Or are they
it just depends. It depends on the price point and the location, of course. I mean, the way that builders generally look at teardowns is they estimate what they can sell a new house for on that lot, and then they'll pay somewhere between 35 and 40% of that end price. So if they think they can put a $3 million house there, they may pay $1 million to $1.2 million for a teardown.
Got it.
But there aren't many $1 million or less homes in Concord that come on the market. So the ones that I'm thinking of that come on for $1.5 million or $2 million are generally the big houses that maybe were built 20, 30 years ago. Maybe they're a little dated because the current owners have been there for 25, 30 years. So then you see, the new generation buying it, redoing kitchens, redoing bathrooms, but wanting to be in those neighborhoods that have always, caught people's eye and said, "Oh, it's a classic."
With all of this being pinched from both ends, right? So you have the limited inventory, the limited available land, the limited town imposed restrictions, etc.
Yep.
Are you seeing a limitation among the blue collar community from a service standpoint? What's the availability of contractors, subcontractors, plumbers, electricians?
It's a good question. I mean, they're extremely expensive, and we half joke about how sometimes a contractor's rates go up when they cross the town line.
They do.
They do. They do. I think it's
having
realistic.
Having discussed with a number of contractors that work the area, they do.
I mean, they can be good business people, and if they think they can charge more, they'll charge more.
For sure.
So I mean, that's definitely an interesting thing to watch. The other side of that is, to kind of follow up on that question, when I grew up in Concord in the 70s and 80s, and, most of my friends' parents, I mean, there were electricians and there were car salesmen and there were, just across the board, school teachers and things like that, policemen. And that, the housing inventory for them is for the most part been torn down or, expanded so much that it's no longer an affordable home for people in those professions. So unfortunately, you see a lot of those people not being able to live in the community they work in. Right. So they have to move a few towns away. It's not as bad as like Nantucket, where you hear about workers having to come over on the boat every day, or the vineyard, places like that. Right. But it's still, I think it's unfortunate because you lose some of the...
Same thing is happening in Bar Harbor. Bar Harbor they've recently passed a town ordinance to allow for the building of employee-only homes, so that they can guarantee a level of living quality, as it were. Because getting in and out of Bar Harbor, I don't know if you know, but it's a very limited access. And so when you're in bumper-to-bumper traffic because everybody is on vacation and you can't get to your job, or you lose your job because of the traffic, that's an issue. Right.
No, I think Nantucket's doing something similar to that too, trying to create that housing. So.
And that's a difficult balancing act, right?
For sure.
Because on the one hand, how do you guarantee the inherent rights of the person who owns the property, right?
Maximize their sale price and things like that.
And who do you choose from, and how do you play that system? Is it lottery basis? Is it what is it, right?
Yeah. So. Well, the old stories of like Cambridge rent control, it was all the judges who had those units. It was like it was not the people it was intended for.
So that's the thing. It's the underbelly.
You gotta be careful with that. I remember hearing the story of someone who was buying an affordable unit. I forget if it was Concord or Lincoln, but one of the towns. And the first thing she did, or before she closed, she wanted to bring in her interior designer because she was going to have the whole interior redone and spend tens of thousands of dollars. So clearly she was not the person those units were built for, but for whatever reason, she met the requirements
My
to be
goodness.
able to buy it. So
Isn't that something?
the abuse, there's always some abuse of those systems.
Certainly. But then when you open up the free market, interesting things happen. Right? So if you go to like St. Thomas, for example, St. Thomas, they are disallowed. A business is disallowed to bring in a contractor from out of St. Thomas in order to work on hotels or even residential buildings.
Okay.
So you have to hire a contractor that is local, right?
Yep.
And so as a result, it's hit and miss on the local talent. And so the times that the time that I went down, we stayed in an Airbnb, and the owner's like, "Oh yeah, we got the best contractors, so on and so forth." I come from a contracting family, and not to say that therefore I know what I'm talking about, but like there was some obvious hullabaloo there where it was just not
the quality was
the quality was lacking. Enough so where my eye caught it. You know what I mean? And granted, I am also in, luxury homes, and I know what fine finish looks like, but this was 8 years ago before I was really, hitting the stride that we're in now. So, it's an interesting thing that happens when you try to meddle too much, right? So
absolutely.
There's gotta be balance
I'm all for free markets and things like that, as long as they're not abusing the citizenry too much.
That's the thing, and who to toe that line. So
it's a hard one.
We'll stay out of politics otherwise.
I know, right?
that got dangerously close, Chris. But no, it's been interesting growing alongside you and seeing what you've done with your team.
Thank you. No, I appreciate all your help, and you guys make it easy, at least from the marketing end of things.
We try to. Is there anything that you are aiming at for 25 that you'd like to share that maybe we can benefit from?
In terms of change,
adoption.
I guess I don't know what I don't know in terms of technology
That's
adoption.
fair.
So, I mean, in a lot of ways, we end up relying on you guys to say, this is something we offer now. I'm an enthusiastic adopter of it, but I'm not someone who necessarily seeks it out. A lot of times, I mean, it's just, again, I'm in a very competitive business, and you see what other people do. And sometimes it's, it might be an agent from New York City or an agent from California who's doing something that we don't see in our local market. Right. And then you try to figure out how do you adopt that technology. Again, trying to create some sort of, even if it's a brief advantage, some sort of advantage over your competition.
Yeah, so. There's a big challenge with that though, because if you, like a lot of things that we've already discussed, it's a double-edged sword. If you chase, if you would, the latest and greatest, and you're constantly learning a new technology, new product, new way of doing something or whatever, you never really get into the groove of doing things phenomenally well.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't
because
perfect that.
You don't perfect it, right?
Yeah.
Furthermore, perfecting the wrong thing is also equally disastrous, right? And so we have agents that get on camera who do an amazing, remarkable job getting on camera. But then after getting on camera 5 or 6 times, they're like, it's not a big thing anymore.
Yeah.
And so they go back to what they were doing, or we change to something else. Now they're on camera, not talking, and they're just kind of introing, just gesturing and stuff like that.
Yep.
And fine. You want to follow a trend? Follow a trend.
Right.
But where does that end?
Yeah. Right. No, and I've seen agents, doing that sort of thing, and we have a marketing consultant who helps us a lot on the marketing side, and she's always pushing for me and for Sue and for the rest of the team to do more video and do more, because that's where you got to be. You got to be on video. But then I see some agents, doing the walkthroughs of homes, or I'm going to be listing this house, and they've got shooting their own video, and it looks so bad.
Yeah.
That it's like, you're not doing any favors to your seller
when
you present it, again, using your iPhone and doing a video of yourself walking around the house. It's like, I cringe when I see it. I want a professional to take the video, and that's what I want a buyer to see, not my face stumbling around a house saying, look at the living room. I mean, not to say I couldn't do it and wouldn't do it, but it's just, to me, it's not the best way to represent the property.
Oh, we get it. We get it completely. It's sometimes best to do nothing if you're going to do the other thing wrong.
Right. Exactly right. No, it's true.
So lack of action is an action.
Yeah. And I always take the approach, it's not about me. It's about the house I'm selling and my seller.
For sure.
And if I make them happy with what I do and what we do as a team, that's the most important thing, because we are in a referral business and there's no commission check that's worth having an unhappy customer. To me, it's like, what's the old saying about restaurants? If you like a restaurant, you tell one or two people, but if you don't like it, you tell 10.
Yeah.
I take that approach with the real estate. It's like,
sure.
you can't have anybody unhappy.
Yeah, I think that comes back in spades.
It does. It takes a while sometimes,
Yep.
but I think it does too. And it's shown that it has for us, because we have gotten a lot of referrals over the last several years.
It means you're galvanized, you're just a fixture now.
You can't get rid of me.
No. Chris, I've really appreciated sitting down with you.
Likewise. Thank you for having me, Jeremy.
You're very welcome. Very welcome.
Yeah, this was great.